Maybe
no, I went to work today. I drove to New Jersey, then I drove back from New Jersey, and I'm just a little. My brain is like pow, pow,
pow.
It's out of there.
It's out of here.
It's out of there.
Hey, do you need sunglasses? I have some extra Oakleys.
I'm good.
You know
I need
mean?
Prescription sunglasses, or I can't see.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You suck. I'll give them to you.
Thank you for telling me I suck because I have a vision problem. Appreciate that.
It's
the feeling.
I feel bad for you. That's why I'm friends with you.
It's always good to befriend the blind.
It's a pity thing.
The lame.
Same reason I'm friends with John the Can Man. Oh, that poor guy.
Yeah. Did you know Syosset has a Can Man also? I saw him the other day.
Is it a different Can Man or the same?
It's not John. It's somebody else.
Huh. I've been thinking about him a lot lately.
He's been around.
Well, yeah, I see him, but...
it must be very hot. It's very hot out.
He's used to it, you know?
I guess.
And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I'm glad you brought this up. Actually, I brought it up. But in any case, you know, because people I know run into him, like Sergeant Slaughter had run into him. And
yeah.
John says you haven't, called him or anything. And,
Does he have a phone?
He does have a phone. I think I helped him set it up, actually. And I thought to myself, man, am I just being like an asshole? Because, we were good, I don't want to say, like, friends. I considered him a friend,
Did you?
I want to believe that I did.
Okay. He used your store as like a place to touch base with normalcy, I guess.
But not only that, before that, I met him through recovery.
Right.
So he was a brother in recovery.
Yes.
So I feel like...
there's a lot of people that go through recovery that you wouldn't necessarily want to be friends with, right?
Like most of them.
Yeah.
Right.
Except for our audience, of course.
Of course, yeah. Well, these people I like.
Right.
But for him, I feel like I could follow up. I could call him, how are you doing? But for me, I feel like I don't have much to talk with about him.
You don't have a lot in common.
No.
To be honest. I mean,
I don't mind. I don't know. He wanted me to come to meetings with him and stuff. And if I ever do go back to meetings, but the more I get away from it and the better I'm doing in my life, the less
interested, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was great.
He's going to have to get to the meetings. He can do that himself. I mean, he's got some time on his hands.
It's just that I don't want him to think I'm not caring about him or that my friendship was any less than authentic,
Okay. Let's be realistic about this.
Yeah.
He is certainly a suffering fellow traveler on the road of life, right?
He's a good guy, and he is 10 years sober.
Yes.
From crack.
That's amazing.
He's still homeless,
but he's also, he's a little crazy. Can I just say that? Can I say that?
Well, it takes a certain degree of mental illness to have enough money to get a place to live and then to decide you'd like it better outside because of the freedom.
Some would say that the mentally ill, that the homeless choose to be homeless.
He clearly did. I had him with a place that, I got him a place like ready that he could afford.
Some would say.
And then he said no.
Where was that place?
It was like one of these apartments above, it was like probably an illegal, it shouldn't be illegal,
They're
like
all
a basement
illegal.
apartment or something like that in town. It was nearby. And it was through my church, and
so you really did some work for that.
I spoke to Youth and Family and my church worked with them, and he saw the place, and then he was like, nope, I want to be on the streets. And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
And I'm Mike with no last initial, apparently.
And boy, do we have a show for you. Today on RMA, we pick apart the overused bromide, everything happens for a reason, and discuss if things just happen, after which we assign whatever meaning makes us feel most comfortable. And NatX is taking his talent to Greece. Find out how and why today on a very special edition of RMA. Hey.
Hey.
And that was a reference most people will have forgotten about.
Talons?
Taking my talents to South Beach. That's what LeBron James said when he announced he was leaving the Cleveland.
His talents or his talons?
He said talents.
Okay. Because you have talons, which I thought was like a Greek coin.
This is a
Is a talon a Greek coin? Because it sounds like it could be.
The Greek money used to be drachmas.
Right.
And now,
also, when you speak about bromides, I think of patent medicine that has heroin in it.
bromides is a word I picked up a few years ago that I liked. Somebody used it in a book, and I didn't know what it meant, and I looked it up.
It's a great word.
It means like it's like
an old saying.
A trite and unoriginal idea or remark. So
okay.
I guess it has negative connotation. Typically intended to soothe or placate. So all of you out there in the rooms in recovery, you are bombarded with these bromides.
You marinate in a stew of bromides.
And what I found was that after a certain point, I could carry on entire conversations using, mostly bromides, filling in with a little improv and more bromides.
Right.
And one person would say a bromide, and I would come back with another.
That makes you a recovery guru.
Boom.
Yeah.
But they're usually.
What's the other word for bromide? It's a trite saying. There's a word for that. What the hell do you call those things? I'm getting bogged down in the English language.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Or hurt people.
Right. Anyway.
Or easy does it, but do it.
So while you're getting at your thesaurus,
yes.
I would like to remind you that this episode is brought to you by the Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon. What is a Patreon? You all know what a Patreon is by now, don't you? It's a members-only subscription service featuring our famous Discord private message server, chat and video meeting platform. We have not done either of those things. For all patrons, it's like having a recovery support family right at your fingertips.
Yay.
Members will also get extra mini shows, pictures, exclusive merch for joining, and an added level of support.
Can I say something? I'm raising my hand.
Can you? Yes, you can.
Speaking of merch getting shipped, I was just checking the email for the podcast, and it looks like 2 mugs were shipped yesterday.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure to who or to whom.
Did you notice that somebody joined last week?
No.
Yeah, you should probably go in there and give them the secret codes to the Discord server.
I'm getting back on top of this, I promise.
You know what? We both are. And here's the thing. It was a little rough, the end of the school year, all the stuff that came up. I went on vacation. Nat's going on vacation. But when Nat returns, I promise, more engagement, more of everything.
And definitely, a lot of my issue was this new job. I didn't have staff to support me, and now I do, and I'm finding that I'm doing more delegating and managing and less
important to delegate
everything. Yeah, yes. So I've got some great people working for me now, and I'm going to have more time, and I can't wait. And I might even get the owner of the company that I work for to maybe want to talk to us.
Interesting idea to have your boss on.
He's a psychologist.
So we have to be nice to him, and it's all softball questions?
No way. No, he's a really direct person.
Is he?
Yes.
Okay.
And he would expect nothing less from the people he's talking to. He wants you to, give it to him like that. So that should be interesting.
You give it to him like that.
Give it to him. Give it to me, Neil.
I had an idea before. I said to Erin, I'm like, Dimitri should come on the podcast. And she's like, no. Because I'm like, because Dimitri, I was like, yeah, he knows all about like weed and stuff. Like it might be interesting to get a perspective from someone who's just heading off to college or something.
Especially because a lot of the Monksters have kids his age probably. And I'm not against it. My wife is also against. Well, I have an 11-year-old, so it's a little different, but I love the idea.
Yeah, I don't want him listening to it. He did ask me the other day. He goes, who's the most famous person you had on your podcast? And I'm like,
it's a good question.
It is a good question. I couldn't.
Probably Jesse Jarnow.
That's what I told him. Yeah.
I mean, he's more famous-er than, what's his name? Paul Churchill was kind of big.
And the other guy.
Him. Mishka.
Yeah, Mishka Shubaly.
But I feel like Jesse Jarnow, because the dead community is... In fact, we had an ad on Dopey. Dave gave us an awesome pre-roll ad. You haven't heard it yet because it's the show coming out
I know. You get
Friday.
Special access and privileges.
Yeah, I give it a listen and just make sure it doesn't... there's
Rub it in.
Issues. And so we're going to have an ad, and Dave unsolicited mentions the Jesse Jarnow.
Great.
He says, check it out. The great Jesse Jarnow is on it, and
nice.
It's really nice of him. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
He's coming on the show, by the way. Probably September. I'm going to have him in Castle Grayskull.
As soon as I fold the laundry down here.
Yeah, you definitely want to fold this.
He needs somewhere to sit.
But,
you should see it down here, people. It's not pretty, and the camera's only facing the area where everything is not fucked up.
Yep.
And which I may post this video this week.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we get back on top of our game here, and
I know we've been all to the block.
Yeah, we're totally. Yeah.
But anyway, so come over to middleagesrecovery.com and sit a spell, pull up a chair, and speak. Hang out in the recovery lounge. Also, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. We're on there. Do we still post the show automatically to YouTube every week?
100%.
Yeah.
In fact,
so
we're
if you'd
getting
rather listen on YouTube.
We have new subscribers all the time on YouTube, I'm noticing. We had some popular
I haven't
shows.
checked the numbers lately. Are we?
Yeah,
does anybody listen to us anymore?
They do.
Good.
They do. We have a good audience.
We also have had a weekly RMA recovery meeting on 11:30 on Eastern Time on Sunday mornings. That schedule's a little bit in flux. Look for something to be more solidified in the fall in terms of when that's going to take place.
I think we should make a commitment ourselves to be at those meetings.
What we need is a staff meeting between you and me where we can sit down and outline.
Let's hammer it out.
Yeah, we'll hammer it out, okay? Because we've just been grinding it out lately. Okay, is there something you wanted to say?
Welcome to all the Monksters listening stateside, around the world, down the street, across the table, and right next door. Welcome all. Settle in, buckle up, and get ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Great reviews will be read on the air.
Right.
I changed the order. Did you see what I did?
A little bit. I know, it confuses me.
It made more sense. I should have told you before. Great reviews will be read on the air. The best place to do that is Apple Podcasts. But we'll take it where we can get it. So give it to me.
Give it to Nat. Because Nat really needs it.
I need it. I'm grabbing my ankles for you. Just give it. Tell us your story by logging on to middleagesrecovery.com.
I don't know what to do with that. Here's the thing. If you guys want to tell us your story, you can write it out. But who does that these days? Why don't you send us a TikTok, a short video or something?
That would be awesome.
That would be fucking great. We would just wear a bag over your head if you don't want to be identified.
Anybody who does that gets a free merchandise thing. Yes, T-shirt.
T-shirt, because I got a box of them upstairs.
T-cozy.
Yeah. Or call the hotline, 516-888-6297. Leave us a 3 to 5 minute message. We'll definitely play it on the air. We haven't gotten a few of those recently. We haven't gotten any of those recently. I shouldn't say we haven't gotten a few of those.
Well, we don't push it enough, but if you guys want to hear yourself on the air.
The show's been on autopilot for the last 3 months.
We're working on it.
We are. I swear to God.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
You can be heard by thousands of Monksters out there and, tell us your story.
Yeah.
Do it.
So, soberversaries, we got a few?
Yeah, we had a few. I realized I was kind of neglecting some of those, and I wanted to.
Yeah, just before you. Okay, I just got to. That's okay. Yep.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Just
Wait, no,
wanted
sorry. Please feel free. Go ahead. All right. You're going to read them out?
Yeah, I really wanted to make a point of announcing these great Monksters who have done it and they're staying sober, and we want to support them. I have a few here. If I forgot you or didn't say it, send me another message, because we're going to be doing this every week. Amy G is celebrating 2 years.
Yay, Amy.
Queen Elizabeth of Monkster Haven has a year and a half as of yesterday. And then the great Allie P had 1 year on July 25th.
Yay, that's great. Can you do two things at once? Yeah,
yes.
You can. That applause is for everyone.
Yes, it is. We're applauding all of you. I want to support our community even more by calling attention to everybody who is doing the hard work and doing it good, even if it's a day.
Are we going to do a wall of shame for relapses also?
If you relapse, we will announce your full name as it appears on Facebook. And post your picture. Yeah. No, but for real, guys, let's
relapses
celebrate
are nothing
together.
to be ashamed of. Okay, it's just field research, as Paul Churchill calls it.
Field
you get back.
research.
We have a listener email. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Hello,
hi,
fellas. Oh, well, it's from Jay. I'll just say Jay. Hello, fellas from the fellas. I like that.
Yeah.
Fellas. A lot of people call us fellas. Have you noticed that? People
I
are
have
always like,
seen
hey,
that.
fellas.
Hey, fellas.
Like we're just a couple of swinging dicks here in the studio. Hey, fellas. Hello, fellas from the left coast. I just discovered the podcast. So far, so good, fellas. I am 5, 16, 30 days sober with single day binges in between. I'm having a real hard time accepting the AA higher power thing. Any advice? I want to stop, but I don't think AA is going to be my way. There's like a rhyme in there somewhere, like AA or my AA or the highway AA. I have checked out the Smart Recovery, and I'm going to give that a try. Jason. Thanks for the kind word, Jason. Kind words, Jason. I have not done this in a while. So I responded to Jason. Should I read that, or do you want to read it in my voice?
Would you like me to?
Go for it.
All right, this is from Mike R. He responds, "Hiya, Jason," or "Hiya, Jason."
Hiya, Jason.
Is it hiya or hiya?
Whatever. It's kung fu.
Hiya, Jason. Thanks for listening. We seem to have a lot of California folks that tune in. What part of California are you from?
I was being conversational.
Oh, I shouldn't have read that part.
That's okay.
Yeah. I couldn't do AA either. I don't believe that I need a higher power to recover from an alcohol use disorder. The very idea strikes me as insane.
Well, that might have been
Those
little
strong
harsh.
words.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in a higher power. And,
Me too.
but I am insane. I say this as someone who is a believer in some sort of force in the universe. Could it be more innocuous? Just not one that will cure me of being a drunk while at the same time giving children cancer. This goes to our discussion.
It does.
I recommend reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grates or Alcohol is Shit by Paul Churchill. Those approaches are both more or less self-administered CBT therapy,
Cognitive behavioral therapy,
like Smart Recovery, which I also highly recommend. What worked for me after years of false starts was internalizing the lessons in those books and getting to the point when I realized that all the things I thought I was getting from alcohol weren't really what alcohol was offering. I started seeing sobriety as a desirable state rather than a state of deprivation. Yeah, I like that one. It took some time, but once I got there, I really didn't have much of a desire to drink anymore. Alcohol was causing more anxiety in me than it ever cured. If cravings are the issue, then take a look at the Sinclair method or watch the documentary One Little Pill on Amazon. The AA folks talk shit about medically assisted treatment, but I think there's a place for it in some cases. This isn't to be construed as medical advice.
Always check with your doctor
Yes,
before starting any treatment or
your,
medication. That's the lawyer.
That's RMA legal.
Yeah.
I've discovered that the folks who are successful at long-term recovery are the ones that keep at it. You can have 100-day ones, but keep at it. Persistence is hugely important. Totally agree.
Huge.
I don't know you at all, but I think that you deserve to be able to live a meaningful and authentic life, however you define it. You will get there if you keep plugging away. I'm looping that in, and we'll see what words of wisdom he might have. Be well, and feel free to reach out anytime.
So, Nat, do you have any words of wisdom from our fella on the left coast, Jay?
So, words of wisdom, I was once like you. No, but seriously, folks. Look, I was there when you're at that point in recovery or trying to get, recovery where you've passed the point of you have to stop. Mm-hmm. You know what it's doing to your life, and now you're basically just fighting yourself.
Yeah.
And so that will happen just because you're not like saved by the light and magically, be completely abstinent. You keep working on it, and just to not get down about it. There's so many ways to get sober, just like what we did. I did everything. For me, I went to AA diligently. I did a 90 and 90, which is 90 meetings in 90 days. I worked steps, and I was relapsing all the time until I really did the holistic approach, meaning the whole shebang. It was 12-step meetings. I saw a psychiatrist, and I was on anti-craving medication. I was seeing a licensed clinical therapist, and I was really doing my own research. I was constantly reading addiction memoirs and how-to books, and I just dove into it fully. And once I got through about 6 months like that, I noticed the cravings that I used to fight off on a daily basis, psychological and physical, just they're not there anymore. I don't know. I don't know if I achieved pharmacological extinction when I took naltrexone and also drank, because I did do that. So I'm wondering, did I have that effect?
I think a lot of people who take naltrexone still do drink.
Yeah.
It's like that's even sort of wrapped up into the Sinclair method, is still drinking while you're taking it.
Yeah, it might even help you if the way that, what's her name from the Sinclair method movie, One Little
Claudia.
Pill said. Yeah, she said her method, the Sinclair method, was to, if you're planning on drinking that night, an hour before you drink, you take your naltrexone pill. And what she said, and I guess doctors had said to her, or the research she had done showed that if you do that, your brain will not get the same reward from the alcohol as it used to. So what happens is you've got naltrexone, you take a drink, and then your body doesn't get the reward. And so by doing that, your brain won't crave that action in the same way. And it's pretty permanent, I guess.
Now, you said you did a lot of your own research, and you went out and you found some solutions on your own. So there are some who say in the recovery community that you should not be the architect in charge of your own recovery. That yes, you should keep coming back. If I could borrow a bromide from our brotherhood, from our AA brotherhood,
it works if you work it. So work it, you're worth it.
Right. I take issue with that one. I do believe in that you keep coming back. That is very important, because those that come back are those that succeed.
Right.
And I don't mean come back to the church basements. I mean just coming back time and time again.
Right.
And reapplying yourself to your recovery, whether that takes the form of AA, Smart Recovery,
Celebrate Recovery,
Dharma Recovery, whatever, any of it. But some would say that there's some danger in you crafting you're charting your own path there.
Yeah.
That you should trod the well-worn path of the others.
I agree with that to a point.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to do my own research, quote unquote, and sort of steer my own recovery successfully until I did the acute phase work, which took me to say, I'll do whatever this program says, just because my own instincts, my own impulses are not going to serve me.
Total surrender.
So at first, for sure, just to get myself to a point where I can then have a clear head. And then I could ask myself, is this really the best thing for me now that, I've got some time under my belt? And, but it took me, I don't know, a long time. It took me 5 years to get my first year. So maybe if I had just listened from the beginning, it would have been better. I don't know.
Well, how is the first step traditionally laid out? What is the first step?
It is
it's not a quiz.
Admitted to myself that alcohol, it's like something in my life has become unmanageable.
I'm powerless.
Powerless.
Right.
Admit that I'm powerless over alcohol and that my life had become unmanageable.
So if we were to rewrite that, taking out some of the things that are a little squishy in there, and there's a whole bunch of first steps out there. Like, people have rewritten the first step over and over, right?
Right.
Admitted that I had a problem with alcohol, and that alcohol has made the rest of my life extremely difficult. How about that? Too much equivocating?
Pretty equivocal.
Because, for some, the life doesn't become entirely unmanageable, right? I mean, I still get up, go to work every day, do all that stuff.
The actual step is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. That's right.
Powerless over alcohol.
And our lives had become unmanageable. Right. Mm-hmm. Wow, you can tell I haven't read the steps in a long time. But, the powerless thing is a huge problem, I think, sometimes. The reason that it worked for me to say that is because I was so controlling and I had to be in control of my, situation, but I was behind the wheel and I was drunk.
Right.
So sometimes for me to say, you know what, I can't do it the way I am. I'm going to have to let someone else's program and ideas kind of steer the truck for a bit. But then I think you get your power back. It doesn't say you're powerless forever. It's like at the moment you take that first step, you should accept that you need help, and I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, there's accepting that you need help, and then there's accepting that you're completely powerless. I think that it's a, I don't know, maybe it's a difference without a distinction without a difference. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, I think the funny part about recovery in general is that, you know, when you first start thinking that maybe you don't want to drink anymore, you know, and I see it all the time in these, you know, these internet groups, these Reddit, stop drinking subreddit, you know, a lot of people start out with this idea that I'm drinking too much and what I need to do is get it down so I only can drink like once a week, or if I only have a drink every now and again, you know, and that's the goal. And then people get suckered in because, you know, after 30, 60, 90 days, however many days without any alcohol, you start to realize how much better it is without having any. And then all of a sudden your goals change. And then by the time you realize that all you have to change is every single thing about your life,
yes,
you're so far in and you've reaped so many benefits that it's not as much of a overwhelming thing as it would be if you walked in and someone told you have to change every single thing about what you do. You know what I mean?
They said that to me, and that reminds me of being early on in an AA meeting. And there was one of the elder statesmen who was a great speaker and was very animated when he told his story. I love this guy. I would love to have him on. And that was one of the things that he like really drove home to us was, you have to do everything in your life differently. Mm-hmm. If you put your pants on right leg, then left, do it left, then right. If you normally drink coffee in the morning, drink something else. Like the idea that you have to change in everything. And it's definitely true. I mean, it's almost impossible to do that, though. I was unable to change.
It's completely overwhelming to think about doing it all at once, especially when you can't find your ass from your tits.
Right.
You know
it's not really possible, but the point, like eventually I think I did change every little thing, but it takes little steps.
Yeah.
Maybe the first step, admitting you were powerless.
Yeah, maybe. Sorry, I just had to bend over. That's more of a thing these days. Like it's much harder. So thanks for that, Jay. Appreciate the email, and I hope something we've said helps at all. Feel free to reach out anytime.
Feel free.
You know where to find me.
Feel free.
Hey, I just had a weird experience today.
What
Can
happened?
I just mention this to you?
Tell me.
So, you know me, I'm a bit of a Facebook guy, right? I'm on there, always mixing it up on the Facebook group.
Right.
Not necessarily on ours, but on others. I fight with people, and I generally have a good time with rancor and
a very good time.
Bad feelings. No, I don't do that very often. But I did leave a comment on a story about working and how I said, like, somebody posted an article from the Times or something, and it was about how people are working weird now since the pandemic. Like they've gone back to the office, but some people actually like going in on strange days, like when nobody's there. And I made a comment that, I do that. I prefer Fridays, whatever. I get a call from the Wall Street Journal who wanted to interview me about this.
What?
Based on a Facebook comment that I made. And this is not the first time the Wall Street Journal has found me.
Wow.
I know this sounds like I'm paranoid schizophrenic, but I'm not. The Wall Street Journal a year ago found me on a comment I made on Reddit and interviewed me about mortgage rates, and it ended up in the paper.
What the hell?
Yeah, so now I spoke to this reporter today. I locked myself in an office and talked about how I really like coming in on Fridays because there's nobody there and it's very quiet and I can get shit done.
Yeah.
And they're going to put it in the paper.
That's so cool.
Isn't that weird, though?
I'm never in the paper.
See, something good can come out of always being a dick on Facebook.
Oh,
right?
That's so cool. Did you mention the podcast in your byline?
I should have, right? Mm-hmm. I should have taken that opportunity, but she wouldn't have put that in there.
No, probably.
Because it was I'm like, how do you... I'm like, I asked her, I said, do you guys just find your sources on social media? Because I said, that sounds like lazy reporting to me.
You're just cruising Reddit.
Anyway, it's just, I didn't mention that earlier. I just wanted to get that out, but... Anyway,
congratulations.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see it. I did want to say before we go on, there was a really interesting post on Dopey Nation by David S., and he gave me permission to read it.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if I'm going to read it today. It's kind of long.
Okay.
But I did want to, it's like this.
Oh, that's long.
Yeah, it's kind of long, but it's really good. And he said I could use it.
What's it about?
Well, he's celebrating. Now I'm going to have to read it.
It's long.
Yeah. It's just he's 11 years free from, he's 11 years, he says, that he's sober. he brings up Kratom and talking about how it's helping him in a responsible way and all of that. And obviously I relate to that because I also take Kratom.
Still?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay, I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. Always with the in the morning.
Okay.
And I think it like helps me, but it doesn't really change my healing.
No
or anything.
judgment here, bro.
I mean, it's just like, yes, you're still sober, and I had to say to him.
I got into it with somebody in a different group about that.
I said Kratom can be extremely helpful to some people in recovery, and to others it is the thing they need to quit. You get to choose which one you are, and I think you know the answer. Spoiler, it's yes, you are sober because you grew up and grew sober, and you know the difference.
Yes. Absolutely, 100% agree with your advice.
Thank you.
Yes.
So thanks, David S. I appreciate it. Okay. Are we on to the life update?
I believe we are.
All right. So did you go to Yellowstone?
Yes.
And did you have some exciting times? Did you have some dangerous times?
I had some exciting and dangerous times.
Wow.
Because, when you take 3 kids, 2 teenagers and 1 preteen, and you bring them to what's basically a large empty space, you have to figure out how to keep them occupied.
Yeah.
So I sort of channeled my inner redneck, and I set up a whole bunch of stuff for us to do. One of those things was shooting all kinds of weird guns in Wyoming because you can. And Ben, who was 11, was shooting a Glock 9mm. I should post the video in the Discord. But we're not really like super gun people, but it was just kind of funny. Aaron was blasting away with the thing too. So that was one day, and then we interspaced that with like tours of the Grand Tetons Park. We were staying in Jackson Hole. It was nice. We did some whitewater rafting. We did a little bit of what was the other thing we did? Oh, ATV riding through the woods.
Nice. Yeah, it's very rednecky.
Very rednecky. And
like
then
did you storm the Capitol or no?
No, I skipped that one. But then after all that was done, then we did Yellowstone proper, and the kids were actually surprisingly really engaged.
Well, it's overwhelmingly amazing, right? I've never been there, but I can imagine.
It's incredible. There's animals everywhere. And then, Jack and I went out one night to look at the Milky Way, which we're a part of, but you can see it.
The stars must be amazing.
Because there's no light pollution.
That is so cool.
So while we were out there, and this kind of freaked me out a little bit, we're standing out there in this valley in Yellowstone. It's about a 15-minute drive from the hotel we were staying at in the park that night. We go there, we pull off to the side of the road, turn off all the lights in the car, set up some iPhones to try and take some pictures. And as we're standing there, we're asking each other, "Gee, do you think there's any wolves around here?" And you hear that?
What the hell?
That is the wolf pack that surrounded us while we were looking at the stars.
No Bigfoot?
Are they too close?
Are they too close?
Wow. That just bugged me out, my earphones.
And so that car that passed by, and they were quiet after that, and I kind of hit the key fob, beep, beep, and then they went away.
But no sign of Bigfoot? I mean, I think there are Bigfoot around.
I have heard that there are Bigfoot around, but...
yeah, you would know, because it doesn't sound like anything else.
No, I didn't hear any big feet.
But that's so cool. Also,
yeah, it's great.
Wow.
I mean, and what was really great about it, and the kind of thing that was kind of funny about it is, there's a tourist town that you stay in, West Yellowstone. It's near the west entrance to the park, and it's a little bit of a honky-tonk town. And the only places to go for dinner really are like bars.
Right.
So, I took your cue, and in a couple places I ordered the Shirley Temples. And then I started getting into the root beers.
Nice.
And
that root beer when they make their own and stuff. And the local root beers.
They do. They had a bunch of local root beers. That's really cool. Good. I got Jack into the root beer. But at no time did I feel like, even though I was sitting in this bar, surrounded by people who were drinking up at the bar and in the little casinos in the bars and stuff, at no time did I feel like I wanted to drink. I didn't even want a non-alcoholic beer. I just, it just didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a difference. If I had gone there 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have been half in the bag every night. I probably wouldn't have gotten up at in the crack of dawn to go look at stuff like I did, or been able to go out. I definitely would not have gone out with Jack at 10 o'clock at night to go look at the Milky Way if I had had like a bunch to drink.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, you got so much more out of it.
So I got way more out of it, and I realized how much I love these vacations now that I'm not drinking. Like I get so much more out of them. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's so great.
Yeah. So that was what I've been doing the last couple of weeks.
I'm glad to hear that, because I actually started to get some anxiety when you were leaving, and I realized they said, Mike and I haven't really talked about not drinking in a bit because we're not seeing each other every week, and I'm like, I'm being a bad tandem sponsor because I'm not checking in, and so I made a point to say, if you feel like drinking, give me a call, even though you know that.
Okay.
But it's
I appreciate that.
Not because I think you're going to drink, but part of getting the support from your sponsor, or tandem sponsor, is, that reminder that, there's someone who's thinking about it, and, that you could always call, and, and it's okay. You don't have to feel like, bad about it, or you could call me anytime. It's always open for that,
I appreciate that. And so I want to run something by you real quick. This weekend we're going to my late wife's father's 80th birthday. So it's a surprise party, and his kids have rented a house in the Poconos, and we're all going to the Poconos, and we're going to stay there for 2 nights.
Oh, wow.
The family drinks like fish.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm a little like, that fills me with a little bit of anxiety. Not because I feel like I'm going to drink, but I feel like it's going to be a weird situation being around people who I have a very intimate emotional relationship with by virtue of the fact that I was married to their daughter for so many years. And they're going to be drunk and I'm not,
Yeah, so, that's annoying. I mean, but where are they at with you drinking?
I don't want to say they're going to be drunk because honestly, I don't want to cast aspersions. People like to drink, but they're not like most times, and it's not out of control. But it's still like people who drink make me very uncomfortable, especially in family relations and stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I was just at something that I'm drawing a blank of what it was, but it was a similar scenario, not a 2-day thing, but it was like people, family, drinking. And, it's uncomfortable. And, it's one of those things that you're going to be probably feeling a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Not only that, you get annoyed by the drunk people. And, and so to go in with a strategy, even though you're not going to fall for it. But like for me, going into one of those scenarios with some kind of plan, one thing I would do, like with my wife, or you do this with Aaron, just say ahead of time. And somehow this always worked for me when I was struggling. Even if I didn't have to use the escape plan, just having the conversation with my wife, okay, if I am uncomfortable, and I wouldn't say to her, if I want to drink, because I want to make it easy for myself to just, say, if I'm feeling uncomfortable, here's the code word, I'll give you this signal, and you leave with me, and we'll go walk away from the situation for a little bit. Yeah. You can say, I have to talk to you, or whatever it is. Right. But you have that plan in the back of your pocket. And I don't know, that helped for me.
Yeah. I mean, I love these people very dearly, I've known them for, 30 years, and they're great people, but it's just like our interests may have diverged to some degree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would set the precedent early. That's always works for me.
They know. They know. And I don't ever recall telling them, but somehow they know.
They're probably listening to the podcast.
And then I'm going to get in trouble.
One trick that I've been using that has worked for me in restaurants or going out, at the first offer of a drink from either a waiter or a person is, I say, nothing alcoholic, please.
Right.
And usually someone will overhear me saying that to the waiter, and they may say, you don't drink. And just setting that precedent early usually makes it okay for the rest of the night. It's not going to stop you from being annoyed by drunk relatives.
Right.
But as far as just not being harassed about why you're not drinking.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any of that. Nobody's going to be like, why are you not drinking? I'm going to bring up a bunch of kombucha, which I know no one else will drink.
Right.
And some root beers and some stuff. It'll be fine.
And usually, as you found, like with when you visited for that work conference, you'd be surprised how many people are curious,
yes,
or had the same experience, or just are like, want to talk to you about it.
Right.
And maybe it's an opportunity to just meet another sober relative.
Yeah. Or are jealous. You know? There's some of that. You know, sometimes I think people may have wanted to stop and have not been able to. But
yeah, we had a pretty uncomfortable situation. I'm just remembering we went to visit my aunt-in-law, and did I already talk about this? She is just got so wasted the day we went to the beach.
Right.
Oh God, I just feel so bad for her. She's really a great person, but she's alone, and she's just. You know, she was drunk. She couldn't stand up. She fell down on the beach when the end of the day came.
Yeesh.
Now she has had leg surgery a while ago, so
maybe that's why she fell down.
Yeah, she doesn't usually fall down like that. But we had to walk her back up to her room, and it was really uncomfortable. And I had to sort of, tell my kids. They're like, "What's wrong with the aunt so and so?" And I said, "She just had a little too much drink. Don't worry about it." But it was scary to see someone you love in that situation, especially being alone, and she lives with her daughter who struggles with the same problems.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So they're together, and it's just, I don't know what to do. What do I say? She's like the third wife of my late uncle. So, we're not super close with her family. I mean, we are kind of, but I mean, I guess we are with some of them, but is it really our place? And we were saying, what are we supposed to do? Like, how can we help? Should we call, her brother and say, hey, I think we have a problem, or maybe I'm overstating it. Maybe she just got started early and it's not such a big deal, I don't know. It's just sad for me.
It is, but from experience that people take exactly zero advice that they don't ask for typically. So,
right.
What can you do really except be available?
Yeah.
Let it be known that you have some experience in the area and are available for a discussion if one needs to.
She knows She knows all about my struggles.
There you
she
go.
was close to the family when I went through everything, and I've been candid with her. And
sometimes you have to let people come to their own realizations.
Yeah, what I worry about is she's on pain medication for her surgeries and her pain, which is legitimate. I mean, it was some bad accidents that. But I know that she also smokes marijuana or cannabis, and I know that she was drinking. You add to that being out in the sun,
right?
And I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. And the flight of stairs she has to walk up to get to her townhouse apartment or whatever.
She doesn't drive.
Does she? Does. I don't know, but we're hearing things like, "Oh, where's your car? Oh, I got an fender bender." And you're like, oh.
I see.
And so we're sort of hearing second and third hand that.
That's a tough situation.
I don't know what to do. But yeah, these are these situations we all come across once we stop drinking and using drugs, you see it more.
You do.
You're
much more conscious of it. Yep.
Absolutely.
So what's your plan? Because you're going to Greece in a couple days, aren't you? Got to stay away from that ouzo and those bazookies.
Oy vey. Yeah. So,
oy vey.
Oy vey. So I'm going to Greece to visit my wife's family, now my family by marriage. And this has been a point of real anxiety for us to travel to Greece. Taking 10 days off of this new job that is so intense.
So you're going for the full 2 weeks?
10 days.
10 days.
So
you're missing 10 days of work?
I'm missing, it'll be Friday, the next week, and then Monday.
Okay.
So it's really 7 days.
Yeah.
It's not the worst. And Friday, Monday are slow, but, it's stressful, to go on this trip. And we just learned that my mother-in-law, who wasn't supposed to be staying with us, I think at all, because some of our relatives, contracted COVID, and then can't, so she can't stay there. So now it turns out she will be with us for the full 10 days. I think maybe 1 or 2 not, but we're both extremely, because she's
nothing says summer vacation than having your mother-in-law living with you in the hotel.
It's and my wife is stressed out about it. And I said, look, we're going.
It's her mother though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, she's like my father. She's a lot like my father. Very overbearing, corrective,
I see.
don't forget, make sure you put pants on the kids when you get on the plane.
That would drive me fucking crazy.
And we're like, she's like, I've been a mother for 12 years. You don't think I know to put pants on my son? That it's going to be cold. Like those corrections that your parents give you, like my dad does that. It just makes, And I said, well, look, are we going? Yes or no? Yes. Is there an option to not go? No. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to make the most of it.
Right.
Maybe she can watch the kids. And I said, but like, that's all we can do, And to think of it from the perspective of, this is really...
Tell me you guys got like 2 rooms at least.
I don't think so. We're staying in Cousin Penny's house.
Oh,
in Athens.
All right.
So it's at like a relative's place.
Okay. That's cheap.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the only reasons we're going.
Yeah.
And then we're headed to Corfu to visit other cousins. And
is that like tofu?
It's just like tofu.
It's a white town?
With better gyros.
Gyros, right?
Yeah. So
I said gyro when I talked to you on Siri the other day.
Yeah.
And it read it back to me as gyro.
Gyro.
I'm like,
that's weird.
Greek Siri.
It's Greek Siri. It's just, it'll be fun. I'm going to be, and this is one of the reasons we definitely wanted to get a show out. I'll be back in 10 days.
You should call from Greece when you're about ready to kill your mother-in-law. We can do another show.
I'll do it.
It would be crackling with energy.
Yeah, well, I got my phone set up. I'll be able to,
What's the time difference?
5 hours.
Which way?
I think it's ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, when it's 5, right? It's 5 hours ahead. So as far as the drinking and the ouzo, I don't know how much my Greek relatives know about how I don't drink, but I'm going to just, hopefully my mother-in-law, she speaks fluent Greek. Maybe she kind of tells them in some no uncertain terms. But really, I'm going to have to just be that guy.
My son-in-law is a drunk. Don't offer him any ouzo.
He's a drunk.
Give him one sip of that stuff. He'll be outscored Kraken Mykonos.
Do they have Kraken Mykonos?
I don't know.
I'm just going to have to be, sturdy and stick to my guns and not be afraid to offend them.
Right.
And I'll do it just like I told you on the first drink.
You offend them on the first drink.
Offend them on the first drink.
Yet.
Get it out. Or in Greek, it's ohi.
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 Motherfucker.
Yeah. So.
Ohi means.
No.
Just no.
Yeah.
So.
Ne is yes.
That seems backwards.
It is. And if you want water, you say thelo nero parakalo.
How do you speak Greek?
Oh, I tried to learn how to do it. And then I learned some stuff when I went to Greek.
Are you good with languages?
Si, senor.
Okay, that just tells me you watch Sesame Street.
Oui, monsieur.
Okay.
How many other languages? Yeah, I'm a bit of a linguist, and some might say a
cunning linguist. That's it's low hanging fruit. That joke.
Low hanging fruit.
Yes,
but in any case, it's going to be fun. I'm going to put up my defenses, and I'm just going to try and enjoy it. I'm going to be there. Let's enjoy it. I'm not going to stress. I mean, I am, but I'm going to really try.
Could be worse. Could be worse.
It could be a lot worse.
You could be living with your mother-in-law full time at home.
Yes, that would be, I don't want to say horrible, but it would drive my wife nuts. In turn, would drive all of us nuts.
Yes.
So
it's a vacation. Enjoy yourself. Go look at the Pantheon and the Parthenon.
The Pantheon.
Whatever
We'll
else.
go see the Patreon.
The Patreon.
So if we have any Greek monksters in Corfu or Athens, let me know.
Yes.
I will wave to you as I drive by on a moped.
Offer Nat a Shirley Temple, however you say that in Greek.
Hey, did you have a strange experience with a bear museum? Or are you not talking about that?
No, I'll talk about that. Yeah, Erin almost got killed by a bear in Yellowstone. Did you hear?
I heard that your wife had a run-in with some stuffed bears that didn't go well.
So, yeah, I was all here, sitting here, talking about what a great time we had, and I forgot the fact that my wife almost died.
Such a great time.
So we had a sort of a free morning. We didn't know what to do with, and right across from our hotel was the Bear and Wolf Wildlife Center, where they have rescued bears, and bears that can no longer live in Yellowstone Park are sent there, like naughty bears. And
it's like rehab, or
it's like they have to remove them from the environment because they've gotten too accustomed to human food and human interaction, and they can kill you, right? And in fact, many people have been eaten by bears. But funny story before I tell you what happened with my wife. I'm in there. This is before what went down. and they're telling the story about how this one bear ended up there. And apparently this one bear, they'd given him 5 different chances to not raid picnic baskets. Like, he was like the most aggressive Yogi Bear in the history of bears. And the straw that broke the camel's back was July 4th weekend. He went into a campsite in Yellowstone, went into somebody's cooler, drank a case and a half of Budweiser, and then passed out on an occupied car.
That's amazing.
So they said, okay, that's 5th strike, he's out, and they took him off to the bear sanctuary.
They should have sent him to rehab at least. Give him another chance.
I thought that was hilarious. So like, well, the bear knows what he likes, you know, and if they didn't grab him then, he would have been he would have ended up having to go to AA or something, because he would have just gone cooler after cooler. So my wife walks into the place, and she's historically has had allergies to like cats and some dogs. So she gets in there, and we have to walk through this big area where there's all these taxidermy bears and stuff that have been stuffed over the years. And then she gets right out next to the bear enclosure, and she has an allergy attack, like an anaphylactic reaction to the animals. And she's sneezing, and she's like, I got to go to the car. And I'm like, all right, I'll hang out with the kids and let me know how you are in a few minutes. And I text her, I'm like, everything okay? And she's like, she sends this picture of her face, and it's like 2 times normal size. And I'm like, oh fuck. So I run out of there.
Wow.
I drive and I get her some Benadryl, and she's like, I'll fall asleep if I take this. I'm like, you're going to die if you don't, just take it. And then she's like, and I'm like, look, there's no way we're going to a clinic. So I had to find a clinic in the town of West Yellowstone. It's population 1,000 people.
Was it close, or do you have to drive like 2 hours?
The hospital where the lady at the supermarket wanted me to go is 48 miles away. And I'm like, I'm not leaving the kids at the bear enclosure while I take. So the clinic was right down the block. So I took her to the clinic. They take her in there. They hook her up to an IV. They give her steroids. They give her like antihistamines. They're thinking about helicoptering her over to the helicopter to the hospital, because they don't know if it's going to get any worse. And I'm sitting there. I'm like, oh man, I thought our vacation was done right then and there.
Yeah,
but
that's crazy.
But it didn't end up getting worse. It got better with the steroids and with the medication. And she was like, let me call over to the pharmacy and see if there's an EpiPen there, and we can give you. And the pharmacist didn't have one, and he was really weird anyway. Like, 'cause she was in there the day before looking for something else, and the PA was like, have you met that pharmacist? He's a little off, like, what kind of fucking big show are you running around here?
Makes you one.
So they found an EpiPen at the clinic and just slipped it to us, and we're like, here, just take it.
Wow.
And I was like, well, that's the nicest thing. Like, they wouldn't do that in New York.
No, never. In fact, I walked into a CVS one time. I was having an asthma attack, and I didn't have my inhaler, and I had to beg, and they wouldn't give it to me. You should go to a hospital. I'm like, you don't have one. So yeah, they're bastards. But was Erin ever allergic? Like, did you have any indication that she was allergic to animals? Does she have
she
allergy?
had she has a cat allergy, but
like Christine.
But I mean, there are no bears around here. Like, we never would have had a chance to see if she was allergic to a bear before.
When would you learn that, right?
I mean, so apparently she's allergic to bears. So we're not going to be getting any bears anytime soon for the house.
Well, I'm glad that she survived. And when I heard that, my jaw dropped.
I couldn't believe it either. But it was, kudos to the West Yellowstone Medical Clinic. They did a fantastic job. The PA in there was a PA, not a physician, but she was amazing. So,
well, I'm glad you survived. And talking about animals, it made me think about when I go to Greece, and some of you out there with pets, I'm sure you've experienced this. Who's taking care of my cat and 2 lizards?
Who?
Luckily, I have a neighbor coming to feed it, but I feel bad because if you've ever fed a lizard, it's disgusting.
Do you have a kid doing it, or is it an adult?
No, it's an adult. It's Brendan.
Oh.
You
should have Kai do it. He did he did our lizards.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's going to be there feeding the cat anyway. Yeah. So animals are basically running our lives.
It's true.
And
I had to drop the dogs off for a week, and that cost me more than huge chunk of the vacation. It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
In other news, I've
it
been reading The Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to my son Max, who's 8. And he's a real lover of reading. And man, I'm just having so much fun reading that book. I put on the best show I can. I do the voices. I read the whole thing in a British accent.
Oh my God, that sounds exhausting.
I love it. I'm like as excited to read as he is, and I'm like, let's go. We're doing Narnia.
That is excellent.
And he's having such a great time. I'm really enjoying that.
That is fantastic. Were you also watching inappropriate cartoons with your other son?
Yeah, speaking of, my kids are so different. With Max, it's, reading the Chronicles of Narnia. With my older son, one of the ways we've been bonding is we watch these horrible cartoons. One of which is, Rick and Morty, which if any of you have seen that, you're probably, mouth agape in horror seeing that. But he's a more mature kid with that stuff. He's not so naive and he gets the jokes, but I feel awful afterwards. I think about it. I'm like, am I warping my son?
No.
His stuff is so crass.
That he doesn't understand it on that level.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. But
it's like The Simpsons. You watch it on two different levels, right? Or Family Guy. Well, Family Guy, really, there's only one level.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Did you let your kids, watch rated R movies at 10 or 11 years old? Do you let Ben do that?
It's very hard to police what's going on in TikTok and stuff. He knows more than, an R-rated movie is almost like an anachronism now, right? Because you can get more sex and violence in 30 seconds by watching 10 TikTok videos than you can watching a whole, R-rated movie. It's very hard to police it. All I can, and I can't be like, you can't watch TikTok because they'll always find a way to watch it. All I can say is if you have questions about anything that you're seeing or, there's something that bothers you, bring it to me and we'll talk about it. And
and I feel empowered. Some parents will say, oh, I have that band in the house. I would never let them do this or that or watch this or that. Yeah. And to me, it's empowering to be able to sit with my son to watch these things I don't want him to watch, but I'm there and I can explain things if I need to or sort of guide the process because these things are not that bad. Curse words, so what? You know what I mean? But it's sort of, it's one of those things. The violence worries me sometimes, but I don't know. He's got such a good head on his shoulders. I feel okay about it, but sometimes I doubt myself, but maybe I shouldn't.
I think parenting these days is completely different than it was even 10 years ago. The way they're getting information has changed so radically in 10 years.
Yeah, and it's amazing how different, and it might be different for Max. My kids are so different. Noah is totally he's athletic, but he hates sports. He doesn't want to play except skateboarding. We've been skateboarding a lot. That's
fun.
Now Max loves to read, loves school, or does really well at school. And he just started going to jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, how is that place?
It's amazing. It's the place not in town, but in Syosset.
Oh, right, that's right.
It's apparently people travel from Queens, which is pretty far away, to travel to for jiu-jitsu. And the coach or the sensei, they call him the professor. And he's this Brazilian guy with a great
professor
accent.
Professor of ass kicking.
And he's awesome, though. The way he works with those kids, and Max loves it, and he loves and especially after watching wrestling. This is he loves it. And what I forgot to realize, what I didn't realize, was actually in my family, on the Roper side of the family, they are judo champions, and my cousin Millard has his own Brazilian jiu-jitsu studio.
Yes, he does.
And so I was like, oh wow, maybe this is in his blood, and it just makes me feel so good when I see one of my kids finding something they're interested in, something that you could tell they want to practice. And that's how I know I found something good.
Yeah.
And the kid starts doing it without me prompting him.
That's the best.
And Max has just been like, can we go to jiu-jitsu? Because you can go any day of the week once you're a member. And he goes 3 times a week.
Good for him,
He loves
man.
it. And thank God my wife is willing to drive him, But, that's been so great. So anybody out there, I don't know if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is all over. I think it is because of mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
Man, highly recommend for an 8-year-old even. I want to take it.
Yeah, me too, but I'd get hurt.
Yeah, I'm a little
I'm
nervous.
not coordinated.
I got spinal stenosis.
Yeah, I got a bad shoulder.
Dicks.
It would hurt.
Did I say bulging dicks?
You
I
have
meant disc.
bulging dicks.
I do have a bulging dick, but bulging discs. So I think we're coming to the end of our.
Can I just ask you about something I see on here?
Yeah.
Am I Jewish?
Oh, this is funny. All right, am I Jewish? Why do I say this? Why do I say
Why
this?
do I say this?
I was talking to the owner of my company, and I forget. We were talking about the dynamic in the workplace as far as like the nationality mix of the people there. And I said, probably they're all thinking the same thing. He said, what's that? He said, the company's run by 2 Jewish guys. And then he looked at me and he goes, I didn't know you identify as Jewish. And I said, well, my mother was Jewish, Jewish law.
Oh, then you are.
And you're Jewish. He goes, yeah, but you identify as Jewish? I said, well, yeah, I mean, if Hitler were alive today, I would be on the list. You know what I mean? Like that's
Is that the litmus test?
For me, it is. It's one of the things, But I really, and it made me really think. I've never been asked that. Do you identify as Jewish? It's such a strange question. But when I answered very quickly, I said, "Oh," and I said, "Yeah, I'm like a Jew for Jesus, like my grandfather. My father's father went to the Jews for Jesus church, which is something that they have."
Really.
And it's what it means basically is culturally and historically, I identify with, my ancestors and, my great grandfather came over from, Odessa, Ukraine to flee Russia because he was Jewish. Not only that, they spoke Yiddish in the house. So even if I was raised under like a guise of, Protestant culture, really, I had so many Jewish relatives. I had a Hebrew name that my grandfather gave me.
Nachas.
Nachas.
Yes.
And he never called me by my regular name. My entire life, it was Nachas. And we celebrated this and that. We did some Hanukkah, some Passover. But I really, always felt at home at a Passover Seder. Even though, as some of you may know, I'm a Presbyterian deacon. And I teach Sunday school, but to me, they're not. The two aren't mutually exclusive.
No. Were you bar mitzvah?
The short answer is yes, but not the way you think. I had a bar mitzvah at a mitzvah tank by the Lubavitches when I worked on Wall Street.
Right. I think we talked about this.
That was a legitimate bar mitzvah.
Sure.
They wrapped the thing around me, and he said the prayers, and I was bar mitzvahed, But I do identify that way. I don't know. It's like I'm neurotic. I'm lactose intolerant. What else? I love bagels and smoked salmon. Gefilte fish sounds good to me. I like a good pastrami sandwich.
Okay.
And Woody Allen, I think, is one of the funniest comedy writers of all time. So it was just this funny little thing that came up.
Interesting.
Identify as Jewish. And it's using that language that we use today with gender identity.
Yeah.
It's sort of interesting. I never thought of it that way. But
So can I identify as Jewish also?
If you feel Jewish.
I have to tell you, because I was adopted and I really didn't know my heritage, I went out and I did the 23andMe.
Yeah, you're not.
And I was really hoping I was Jewish.
Really?
Yes. I was like, I'm so into the culture and the food and the jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, the comedy.
The comedy is what gets it. But I was crushed to find out.
I'm so sorry.
Absolutely zero.
Well, being Jewish, I'll make a Star of David here.
Yeah, you know what though?
You can join the tribe.
Yeah.
I actually said, "Welcome to the tribe" when he's
what?
He
in the mitzvah tank?
No, for the when I was talking to my boss.
Oh.
It was great, and he gave me a hug. He's like, "I didn't know that." I'm like, "Look at this," and I didn't think of it as strange. It all felt quite normal. I'm like, "Yeah, man, we're in this together," But that's
great, man. That's a great story.
I don't know. It's it's this lost sense of belonging I never had because I knew that there was something strange growing up. Like, why are we celebrating Hanukkah with our family in Houston? And I'm going to church, and how come I'm not allowed to take communion?
Yeah.
Because my mom was still not converted by the time I was 10, 11, 12.
Really?
So when the communion tray would go around at church, I was told to refuse it. And so it was, and then
that must have been very confusing as a kid.
It was. And so now that it's all out in the open and I sort of understand, where it all came from, I feel better about it, because it doesn't mean I don't. I'm not a Christian. It just means that culturally and heritage-wise, it's in my blood, And it's just it was interesting to sort of validate it that way.
That is.
And so there you have it. Mazel tov. Mazel tov.
Back at you.
And I think it is time. Why don't we take a short break?
We'll
gather our thoughts, and we'll be right back after these words.
And we're back.
Hi.
I would like to begin the segment by playing a short clip from one of my favorite movies from the 1980s that sort of flew under the radar. I don't know have you ever heard of the movie Repo Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched it as a kid.
Did you?
And I wasn't supposed to watch it.
Right.
Yes.
Great movie.
I do remember that.
Hopefully I'm still connected to the board. Let's see.
A lot of people don't realize what's really going on. They view life as a bunch of unconnected incidents and things. They don't realize that there's this, lattice of coincidence that lays on top of everything. I'll give you an example, show you what I mean. Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say, plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp, out of the blue, no explanation. No point in looking for one either. It's all part of a cosmic unconsciousness. You eat a lot of acid, Miller?
You ate a lot of acid.
I highly recommend that movie to anyone that's not seen it.
That was very apropos.
It was. So what we're talking about today is whether things happen for a reason, which really, when you crystallize that, when you broaden that question, when you pull out, as it were.
Got to pull out in time.
Yeah. The question becomes, is there purpose in the universe, right?
Purpose, meaning what? Does the universe have a purpose?
Does the universe, has everything already happened? Is everything preordained? Is there a plan? Is there a God? What is the nature of existence? Nat, that is really the topic of today's conversation.
What is the nature of existence? This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. And it comes up to me when I started to get annoyed when I would hear, and please don't get offended if you've done this, somebody will say after they survive their addiction, they'll say, were it not for God, or God saved me from this, it saved my life. Without God, I wouldn't be here. And on first glance, the first time you hear that, you say, oh, that's like a great thing to say. It's being humble. It's giving up to the Creator. But really, for me, what it does is, what does that say about the people who didn't make it?
Yeah. Is that also God's plan?
Well, right. And the thing is, I realized I was doing the logic in my head. I'm like, I don't believe that God goes around giving people cancer. I don't believe that God goes around overdosing people and saying, that guy gets a hot dose, that guy is okay.
Yeah.
This one, he's going to be great because I've got plans for him. It doesn't make sense with the God of my understanding or the universe, or even if we have an intelligent, sentient universe, it's not something that makes sense to me. But that also, once I came to that conclusion, I said, well, okay, but I believe in God. And so I had to ask myself, if I do believe in this God or this intelligent universe, how does it fit in to your daily life? And, is it really God saving me from things? Or what to say when, and they use it too, like if somebody has a horrible tragedy, oh, God has a plan. Yeah. It happened for a reason. And I just don't like that. I think it's lazy.
Yes. Some people would say that we don't have the capacity to understand the way that God makes things happen in the world, and what seems like random cruelty is really part of some larger divine plan. But I think that's a little bit of a cop-out personally, because I also believe that something created the universe, something set the wheel into motion.
You're a deist.
Yes, I'm a deist.
A deist
like
believes
our
they set the clock and leave it there.
well, like our founding fathers were deists. Really, that's what they believed in. Not to get weirdly patriotic things, but well, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, science can answer the how, but it can't really answer the why. So, if you're accepting that there's some force that created the universe, then you have to sort of question, like, well, is it a sentient force? And if it is that sentience everybody together contributing to that sentience? Or, and I'm probably pronouncing sentience wrong since I've only read it in books. Sentience? Yeah. Or is it, Papa Sky God, which I tend to disbelieve. I don't like you. I don't think there's somebody up there. I don't think if you pray that for the Yankees to win the World Series, God's going to be like, yeah, fuck the Red Sox this year. I just don't think it works that way.
No, it doesn't. But it's also, it's the reason this is, tricky is because this is a widely held belief. Not only most people you meet in recovery, but at the church that I go to, the religion that I practice. And so I'm kind of feeling like I'm at odds with some of the things I'm just supposed to accept. But so I'm struggling with it because the bottom line is I don't know. Anybody who says they know for sure is lying to you or selling you something because nobody knows. We can just sort of infer from, the things we observe, basically.
Yeah.
And so I put the question to the Monksters, and I did the Monkster Speak segment for right now.
What the baby up to? Let's take a peek. The segment we call Monkster Speak. Speak.
So
that's the old one. Never mind.
That's the old one. It's in the. But every time I have a big question, I put it to the Monksterverse, and I always get good answers. Now, I posted it first on the Inner Sanctum at patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages, where we have the online discussion forum, which is, we're on there all the time. And I put the questions out there first. And so I said, Monksters, I've been thinking about this a bit. Does everything happen for a reason, or do things just happen and then we assign meaning for that that makes us more comfortable?
Can I just say that in that question right there, in that statement, or do things just happen and we assign the best meaning we can come up with, is basically the kernel of Carl Jung's approach to synchronicity, where these things happen externally, and depending on what frequency we're tuned into, a synchronous event will either have meaning or it will not, right? Like you can notice something and it can jibe with something else that's going on in your life, but if that has no internal meaning to you, it won't even register.
Right.
Jung actually came up with the term synchronicity.
Oh, he did.
It did not exist before that. But anyway,
the collective unconscious.
When I read your sentence there, I was like, wow, that's really interesting, because that's exactly what Jung would say, that we're assigning the meaning based on our own personal experience.
Does that make it any less valid? I mean, I don't know.
That's a different question.
Is reality.
Indeed.
So the first Monkster in the Inner Sanctum to answer was G Money Smooth, the editor-at-large of the RMA Newsroom.
Yes, who's on hiatus.
He is.
But soberliningsplaybook.com for all your news that you can use for recovery topics.
Whatever you choose. Yeah. He says, I say we do our best to make sense of the world and assign reason to the stuff that happens in order to make meaning of it.
Who is it?
With my drinking, I altered the trajectory of my career, brought my marriage to the brink, and ended up on an involuntary psych hold. I might have smacked anyone who said it all happened for a reason. Nonetheless, I've experienced a lot of positive change and growth that would not have happened otherwise.
Yeah. But yeah, right? I mean, if you...
Yeah, we agree.
Go tell somebody who's like, suffering that this is all part of a bigger plan.
Oh, my mother would say that to me when I was like in the middle of all of the shit I was going through. I had no car. I was going to probation. I was being like, it was a nightmare. And I was, just kind of talking about it. She goes, oh, well, maybe it's for the best. And I'm like, no, it's fucking
It's definitely
horrible.
not the best.
And anytime I would argue with the wisdom of the punishments I was being given, it was you're not taking responsibility. And I'm like, maybe I just think that the punishment isn't fitting the crime here. I mean, is that okay? Can I feel that way?
Do we all need to go through the trials of Job before we come out on the other side? I don't know. Amanda C. says, I never believed this. I believe that a lot of shit just happens, and I've always found it kind of off-putting and dismissive when something bad happens and someone says this. Yeah, I'm kind of more on that side of things.
I don't like to throw cold water on people's sentiments when they say that, though. I'm not trying to do that.
But you know what? But people who believe that certain things in their lives happen for a reason have a reason to believe that, right? There's something going on inside their own heads, right? Because they're taking a lesson. They're using. If you say that about something that you are personally going through, it's not as judgmental as if you say it to somebody else, because you are trying to extract whatever meaning you can out of that. Now, whether that's based on, your religious belief, which may be extremely personal to you, and you may really see the world that way. So you're going to be able to find meaning in that suffering. Right.
Yeah.
But if I tell that to somebody else and they don't have if they don't believe in that kind of a universe, they're just going to be like, fuck you.
Right. Exactly. You get to
and rightly so.
And with good meaning, I'm sure. Queen Elizabeth I of Monkster Haven says, Nat, I've always wondered this. I agree with Amanda C. that it is dismissive, especially when death is involved. But some things like terrible breakup with an ex that almost led me to suicide, that led to a better life, although I couldn't see it then. Interesting to see what other Monksters think. That's definitely, you always see things differently from the other side, and that's part of what we're doing, right? Making meaning of all the chaos that my life has been and connecting dots. It might make me feel better, but it does not point to a master planner going, okay, now he's going to get a DWI. Now his wife is going to kick him out, but in 2 weeks he'll come back, and that will be the lesson.
Well, okay, so it's very easy to sit because the devil's advocate view would be, well, Nat, if you hadn't gone through all of that stuff and you hadn't gotten sober and you wouldn't have gotten your family back, and you would not be now sitting in this basement talking and helping thousands of people with this podcast. So it was all for the best in the end. But it's very easy to turn around and look behind you and make up connections for random things that seem like a stepping stone to the present time. But in reality, maybe it was just chaos,
and that's kind of what science says, I think. And we'll get into that later.
Science is kind of interesting in terms of quantum entanglement and stuff like that.
Down to that level, right? Spooky action.
Isn't it all on that level, though? Isn't everything we do on that level? It's all atoms swirling around the world. Anyway, Hope says, I've said many times that things happen for a reason, but it's usually due to hearing bad news. I'm sorry. I missed one.
The great wizard of Monkster Haven, Alan B. He says, I'm in the everything happens camp.
Yeah.
If it seems important enough, I'll try to reason it out. See what I did there? It's like the Frank Sinatra song. That's life. That's what people say.
Okay.
Always the wisdom.
So that's, it happens.
It happens.
Shit happens.
Shit does happen.
It happens, and maybe there is no reason for it happening.
And the comment Hope made, things happen for a reason, but it's usually due to hearing bad news. Yes, this is the tool that we use. This is, and as we're going to talk about in the article that we brought on for this one, it's just when things happen, it's a survival mechanism. It is evolutionary, and that you need to soothe yourself, and that we have this need deep down inside to connect dots to make meaning.
Yes,
it's the dopamine. It makes you feel better, but it doesn't follow logic necessarily. Lisa K says things just happen. How we respond to them gives reason.
Okay. That's Jungian.
I like that. Yeah. Kathy H says, everything happens for a reason. I don't waste time trying to figure out the reason. I just have faith.
That's the other side.
Right. Just have faith. That's a tricky one because I'm at odds with myself here. I believe in having faith. But how can you have faith if you don't believe there is a plan or a reason? What am I having faith in?
I don't know. There's 4,000 different gods.
Yeah.
It would be incredible amount of hubris to believe that yours has all the answers, and that yours is the only one.
Or it's the same God by many names.
Yes, but not everybody goes for that.
They don't. Kathy H. Says everything happens for a reason. I just read that one. The prodigal Monkster. Rhina J says everything doesn't happen for a reason. I've always thought that was the most ludicrous comment ever. The only people I saw post memes saying that were like middle-aged white ladies, LMAO. And I take exception to that because those are my favorite people in our audience. But thank you, Rhina. I hope you're doing well.
Rhina sounds like a materialist.
And finally, we have an appearance by the famous, the lovely and talented Misty, the recovery fairy. Mm-hmm. So she's been hanging out on the boards. She says, listening to Bill Marshall's book about this. So I want to know more about
Who's Bill Marshall and what is his book? Now, Misty, you can't just leave us hanging like that.
Misty, if you're listening, tell us more about this Bill Marshall, and I'd love to hear. I'm so glad to see you listening and hanging out with us. So like clearly it seems like most of our audiences sort of falls along the same lines as like it's like one of those things we say because it's sort of part of our cultural dialogue. Yeah, it's a common thing, but it's one of the when you think about it and you try and apply it to your own life and your experiences, not so. I don't know.
I mean, there are these weird moments where I kind of vacillate back and forth between wondering exactly what, this idea that there's some sort of synchronicity in the universe and that things pop up when you need them or answers will bubble up out of somewhere. I mean, I just, the example that really hit me in the head, because I'm very much a materialist a lot of the times, even though I believe in spiritualism to some degree, but when my son went for his orientation at Scranton, and the roommate that he had picked for that, or that he was randomly assigned to for that overnight, was a kid he used to play with when he was 3 years old. And it like
what are the chances?
Is that,
right?
I mean, and so did I try and derive some meaning out of that? I sure did. I was like, well, that's got to be a sign that we made the right choice in terms of where he's going to school. And then I had to kind of walk back my own insanity and be like, you know what, it's shit like that happens, and I like to think that that's a positive sign, and maybe he sees it as a positive sign. And if he does that mean it's going to reverberate positively in his life,
Right.
Like I got sober, I'm thanking God for that, Does it matter whether it's true or not? As long as you believe it?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Does it matter? I do have a comment from Dave from Dopey. I asked him directly because I'm like, I got to get his opinion. Maybe he'll give us something good. And he wrote, I say everything happens because it happens.
Oh,
short
like Alan.
to the point. Yeah. But it's interesting because he talks a lot about his program, and he talks a lot about he's getting in touch with his higher power. Mm-hmm. If you listen to Dopey, you've heard the evolution of Dave as he gets more into this. And you can tell he sees the change in his life. The more he does like praying and, believing and having faith, it seems to work wonders for him. He feels better. He feels more stable in his recovery. So maybe it doesn't matter whether or not it's true. Maybe just the effect that it has in your life, hopefully positive, is enough.
Yeah. I mean, you could pull back and take a look at it as the Hindu sort of way of looking at it, that you and God and the universe are not separate things. So even though you think that you're getting that energy or power or whatever it is from a higher power, that power is actually you in disguise.
I love this view, and I've said this before on the show. As I'm sorting through my, worldviews and my theology and things like that, I've come to the sort of conclusion, and it's hard to put this succinctly because it's kind of out there, but just what you just said, that maybe God, as we think of it, is like this sentient energy that not only created the universe, but is the universe. And each one of us, as people, are merely like a portion of that God who basically is manifesting itself in our world, wherever, so that it can experience the world it created, or that it is. Because if you think about God as something that exists outside of space and time, how could it, appreciate things like smelling a rose or love or even hate or pain? It can't. So what it does is we're part of itself, and we're sort of little parts, little specks, kind of like holographically though. So just like in a hologram, if you break a little piece off, it contains all the information.
Yeah. So, we have that with fractals, and we have that with,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think possibly this is a holographic universe. We're all fractions of the whole. And that's why when I talk to people now, I always work on, when I look at someone else, I see myself in that it's just another part of the intelligent universe experiencing itself in different ways to get the full experience.
Yeah. And when you look at the universe that way, you can't help but have compassion for everybody else in it, because they are all part of you and you're a part of them.
Yeah.
So I was, everybody always says, God is in everyone, right? That's always said a lot. You have God inside of you. Like I was thinking, like, but really you just should turn that on its head, and that you're in God.
Right.
It's like, it's more or less the same thing, but different.
And that's why it feels so good when you're helping someone. You're helping yourself. You're helping the bigger consciousness. It's all, so that's why I love to be of service. Like when somebody calls me, or, even a stranger, I always start with, what can I do for you? And it changed the tenor of the whole conversation.
Right.
How can I help you? Like, what is it? And by helping you, I'm helping me. I'm helping creation, basically. And it lets me be more, be of service, be more helpful, and therefore making myself feel better, because really when I help you, I help myself.
Yes, but it's not selfish, because because selfish would imply the existence of a separate self.
Exactly. And so when we're thinking of ourself collectively as the whole, it's part of it. Now, where this goes awry a bit, I had a nasty experience recently with a coworker, and I thought to myself, I'm not angry with this person. I feel sad for the person, because I see them as me making horrible decisions and experiencing, that kind of negative side of the universe, negative side of life. And so I really don't see it as an affront to me personally. I see it as like a sad kind of, I'm hurting myself.
Yeah.
When they're hurting me or someone else, it's just hurting themselves. And so instead, what it does for me is, instead of being angry and resentful, I feel sad. And it's definitely a different way of approaching, like, people, like transgressions against you.
Yeah.
I can't.
It's hard to do.
It is hard to do, but I'm getting better.
Because we are, the individual ego is a very strong thing.
Yeah.
And you get your feelings hurt, and if someone calls you a name, you want to lash out, and you want to,
Yeah.
So it helps to have that perspective. That's where I think, meditation is very helpful.
It's very Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
The Buddhist goes to the hot dog stand and says,
make me one
with everything.
Yes.
And then, the guy gives him, then he says to the hot dog vendor, he gives him a 20 and he says, "Where's my change?" And the hot dog vendor says,
"Change must come from within."
True.
Yes. Yeah. That's when you punch the hot dog vendor. Where's my $15?
Yeah, where's my $15? So these are the things we've been thinking about. So how does that affect recovery? How does it affect?
Well, I mean, the whole basis of 12-step recovery is turning your will over to a God of your understanding,
a higher power.
Yeah. So maybe I'm talking myself into thinking that if that higher power really is you in disguise, then that's fine. I have no problem with 12 steps.
Well, right. That's of your own understanding. And so maybe you've been reading it wrong the whole time.
Maybe I have been. I mean, I remember the way Evan Haynes was sort of talking about, and he was our guest, a few months ago. And,
great guest.
Yeah, he
was
wrote
awesome.
that book, Can America Recover? And he goes really deep into sort of that whole psychology of how everything is connected on a not only on a quantum level, but also on a just a spiritual level.
Well, yeah. Now all of these hokey not religious, these hokey, crazy, quote unquote, spiritual ideas about that we're talking here are starting to prove out in scientific research, which is the most exciting thing I think that's happening in science is the things we're discovering on the quantum level, because we're all part of that. Like the spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it, quantum entanglement, right? Like every, atom in our body was once part of another. Like everything is connected, and they're discovering that they can actually communicate between two entangled particles.
Yes.
Over vast distances instantly.
Yeah.
There's no space that travels. So it's kind of starting to show us that even on a macro level, we have to start thinking of this universe. I'm not talking just here to Australia, here to Pluto, here to, another galaxy. Like really, scientifically, it's all part of the same thing. And that actually goes back to the Big Bang, where we all started, if it's true, if the Big Bang theory is accurate, which it's starting to look like it is, or it is, some people would say that's a mathematical certainty, but the fact that we started out as one, and then when it exploded, that one, which was all entangled, all encompassing, is now all over the place, and we're part of that.
It's a lot of ones, but it's the same one.
Right.
All over the place.
So science is starting to sort of support these formerly thought of as, ridiculous spiritual.
Yeah. I mean, even if it didn't, though, I mean, it feels right to me to look at it that way. It makes sense, The other part about the quantum stuff that's fascinating is that particles behave differently when they're being observed. And
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Do you know about Schrodinger's
Yes.
cat? I should have. Do you remember it? Because it's a really interesting experiment that gets quoted all the time.
They put a cat in the box, and the cat is both alive, and they cut it in half, and the cat's both alive and dead, right?
So Schrodinger's cat. In quantum mechanics, Schrodinger's cat is a thought experiment that illustrates a paradox of quantum superposition. In the thought experiment, a hypothetical cat may be considered simultaneously both alive and dead as a result of its fate being linked to a random subatomic event that may or may not occur. This thought experiment was devised by Erwin Schrodinger in 1935 in a discussion with Albert Einstein to illustrate what Schrodinger saw as the problems of the Copenhagen interpretation. We are losing listeners right now.
You don't need to go into that, but
basically, there's a cat in a box, and before you observe it, it's both alive and dead.
Right.
And that's actually borne out by, in particles, it's a wave and it's a particle at the same time until it gets observed. Anyway, so going back, we should just edit that whole thing out.
Yeah.
But it's all part of a scientific discovery, and it has to inform our macro view of existence.
And it does. And, the fact that we are connected may go some distance towards explaining why we are able to see connections and things that would otherwise appear random. But, I think there's also, we're wired by biology to extract meaning from seemingly random events, right?
Right. That brings us to the article that...
okay.
So I actually, this is not Recovery in the News, but this article from Psychology Today.
We're wired to see patterns and stuff, right? So
right, and they talk about that in the paranormal world a lot. When you see a face in like clouds and stuff, pareidolia, I think it's called.
Well, it's weird because I meditate in my garage, right? And I'm always staring at the concrete when I meditate, because I meditate with my eyes open.
It sounds like song lyrics.
A lot of the Zen schools will have you keep your eyes open. And I basically, when I'm looking at that concrete, all I see in there are faces. And I used to think it was is this like acid flashbacks, or did I take too much LSD as a kid? But I don't think so. I think it's my brain, when you untether it from thinking, and you just give it a blank screen, such as like a garage floor that's made out of cement with a whole bunch of cracks in it. You're wired to see things that are linked together, like by image, whether it be a face or anything else.
Well,
it's really trippy,
It's evolutionary. It's called pareidolia. And it's the tendency for perception to impose a meaningful interpretation on a nebulous stimulus, usually visual, so that one sees an object, pattern, or meaning where there is none. Common examples are perceived images of animals, faces, or objects in cloud formations, seeing faces.
Well, wait a minute now.
Objects.
You're saying it's not there, or your brain just sort of orders the way the light hits these molecules, so it really is there to you.
Right.
Right? I mean, and doesn't that go a long way towards explaining why you can derive meaning from something in recovery that somebody else, it's completely meaningless to them because your brain orders it in a certain way?
I think, maybe, and it was really a survival instinct. Early on, you know, if you were looking in the forest for a predator or prey, your brain wants to see the person.
Everything's a lion.
Yeah, right?
Fuck.
Exactly. It's a survival mechanism, but it's with us today. People see all kinds of things in the clouds. In fact, one time when I did acid in high school, we were driving up to a ski trip, and keeping in mind, I was not a deadhead. I did not listen to the Dead. I had very little contact with deadheads, and I looked out the window, and the sky was clouds that were, I think they were green, and it was like upside down river of Grateful Dead skeletons. Literally. I saw it like it was there.
You don't think the Dead invented that iconography, do you? I mean,
I don't know where it came from.
They took it from their own acid trips.
Oh,
so there's
shit.
like universal commonality in these images we see.
I saw turtles too.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was funny because when we finally got up to the ski mountain, this was a school trip, I thought that the snow was green because it looked green to me. And I said to my girlfriend, I said, wow, is it St. Patty's Day? I said, why is the snow green? And she didn't know I was tripping.
Okay.
And she was like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, never mind. But, I was seeing those things. And so this article is called Why We Think That Everything Happens for a Reason. Our Evolved Cognitive Bias is Magnified in Illuminating Ways in Mental Illness. So this sort of ties in mental illness.
Well, that's schizophrenia, right? You see like connections where they may not exist, or maybe they do exist. I don't know. I mean, some people have thought that schizophrenics in society are most undervalued. They're really prophets, and we should listen to how everything fits together in their delusions because it might be important.
Oh, I shouldn't have fired that schizophrenic.
So you can't fire people for a medical diagnosis.
I would never do that.
You should consult your attorney.
I am right now. Many people go through life and face adversity and believe that everything happens for a reason or that things are meant to be. Many are certain that their lives are guided by a higher power, if not directly, then subtly and mysteriously convinced that they see evidence of this in their life events. Subjective evidence can feel extremely compelling. These sorts of beliefs are so widespread that we generally do not consider them irrational or bizarre. They are consistent with our intuitions.
So wait, if you talk to God, it's okay, but if God talks to you, you need medication?
Then you're in trouble.
How does that work?
But part of this article, and we're going to tie this back to recovery, the reason that we're going into the science of this and talking about it this way is because it's such a big part of the rooms in recovery and recovery literature. And,
right.
That this higher power, that there's a reason, and it's constantly so. If you're sitting there going, what does this have to do with me staying sober? I'm getting there. I wanted to think back to why do we feel like we have to assign meaning to all of these random events when something happens? Why is it important to me to say that happened for a reason? There was some plan, and so this is a psychologist or psychiatrist says, in my psychiatric practice, I've observed how this type of thinking can have powerful effects, interestingly, both positive and negative. On motivation, it can be reassuring and comforting, but can also lead to disillusionment, anguish, and feelings of abandonment, leaving some to ask, why me? When cruel adversity happens. I have found it difficult to predict whether religiously or spiritually inclined patients will be consoled or embittered by their faith in a purpose-driven universe when they experience tragedy and suffering.
Let me ask you something.
I'm emboldened that.
Isn't it like this idea that the universe has a plan for you and that, God is directing you? Isn't that incredibly narcissistic?
Yeah, and that's what the rest of this article goes on to talk about, when people are severely have this severe mental illness, how these traits that are so natural to most of us as a survival mechanism, become exacerbated, and people, think of Beautiful Mind. that
Yeah,
movie where the
right.
guy's got newspapers taped to the
He
wall.
thought the CIA was following him
He's
around.
drawing, patterns on it, and that's sort of the extreme of this. But I don't know that it invalidates the idea. But it's just interesting to note that when you're feeling those things, this is an evolution. This is evolutionary. It's not necessarily, rational. It doesn't really help practically to think that way.
I think if you go overboard with that sort of thinking, you can really drive yourself up a tree, man. You look at all this arbitrary stuff and you think it's all important and that there's meaning there, and when it's really meaningless, and you can really think yourself into quite a box with stuff like that.
Right. And the alternative belief,
depression, anxiety,
the alternative belief that life is random is disquieting but can be emotionally liberating, as you're probably feeling once you've embraced your sort of not atheist, but agnostic.
I don't, that's also kind of pessimistic in a way, isn't it? That life is completely random and nothing that we do here has meaning.
Well, but that goes back to if it has meaning to you. Why does it have to be tied to some
greater
super being's, plan? Why can't it be enough that you've done this for yourself? You've done this for your family. You're contributing to your.
I guess that is enough,
right?
For me, right? I don't need to be connected to, but I think as humans, our species has a need to be connected to one another. I don't know if we need to be connected to God and through God other people. Mm-hmm. I think we can just be connected to other people, because what's good for this family and this unit is also good for other people, right? Everybody living a productive, sound life, not out there stabbing or killing people or doing anything crazy that disturbs the social order.
Right.
Yeah,
the meaning can just be how you're contributing to, society. The article goes on to talk about how human brains are pattern seeking. When we talk about pareidolia, they're pattern seeking and agency detecting. We evolved these tendencies as social animals to be very adept at recognizing purposeful, intentional action on the part of other people, as well as on the part of predators and prey. These traits were likely favored by natural selection because of their survival value. We're so adept at identifying patterns.
So this identifying patterns is also like us finding meaning in random events, right? I think that's how we were wired. We need to see, and that translates into there being a meaning when random things happen to us.
Yeah, and interestingly, and this takes it back to some of what we've been talking about for, ever since we started the show, is dopamine. They actually
I knew dopamine would show up.
Yeah, the brain mechanism of delusions is partly understood. It probably has a lot to do with the overactivity of the neurotransmitter dopamine.
So what's the delusion? That life has meaning?
According to the scientist, for most people, their automatic reality testing ability stops them from believing that someone in the broadcasting studio deliberately placed the ads on TV for them personally.
Oh, okay.
That would be delusional. Some, however, may believe it. It's part of some omen, a sign, for example, that fertility treatment is about to be successful. I don't
That's
know
weird.
why that would
what about larger conspiracy theories, though? How does that fit in? Because that's like whole groups of people seeing patterns where they don't exist.
Yeah.
Or may exist. I guess I should qualify that.
This psychiatrist is saying that these are symptoms
of a mental illness.
Of a real, an exacerbating mental illness.
Right. So you can believe that life is not random, but if you take it too far, then maybe it's time to...
Like every little thing has meaning. I think there's some middle ground here, but dopamine being a central player in the brain's attentional motivational pathways. So a spike in dopamine transmission marks a stimulus as important. So your brain, when there's a dopamine spike, like let's say you say, that just happened for a reason. You get a dopamine spike, and then your brain
reinforces.
It says that stimulus is important, making the stimulus more salient and noteworthy. So a person with overactivity of their dopamine transmission may think that too many things are salient, mistaking irrelevant stimuli as personally relevant.
Wow.
For example,
you get into bipolar and all that stuff,
Like a psychotic individual might see the same model of car drive by twice in a few minutes and construe this as evidence of surveillance. So anyone who's done cocaine,
right,
especially
after a couple of days, you get
you're in this. All right, so but like, why am I going this far, discussing this science and all of that? Part of it is because I like to understand why I do irrational things, and it also makes me sort of struggle with, like, I believe in God. I believe in a creator being. How do these newfound logical deductions, like, fly in the face of or support the theology that I espouse and that I live by? And that's what makes me a little bit nervous. Like, am I talking myself out of a closely held, religious practice?
Well, I mean, if your religious practice doesn't square with what you know to be true internally, then maybe you need to alter the way you think about the religious practice.
Yeah,
right?
and I
mean, doctrine is just written by a bunch of people. It's an interpretation.
Well, that's it, and that's what I always have told people when discussing theology: is, look, these are books written by people.
Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, if you believe Jesus, that the things that he wrote, okay, is God through man. Like, it's a whole thing, and there's a lot of
if you look
intellectual gymnastics you have to do to make it work.
There are, which is kind of nutty when you think about it. What was
it's where faith comes in.
Where faith comes in, but faith without reason is based on nothing. I mean,
right, and
you can have faith that Jesus was the Son of God, but you also have to recognize that he never wrote down a single word that he ever said, and the Gospels were all written 80 to 100 years after he last lived, and that the Council of Nicaea was the one that decided on which Christian beliefs were going to be the ones that were accepted, and so on and so.
Constantine the First.
Right. So it's like you have to you can understand the history, and then you still have faith, right?
Right, but. What this starts to do, which I don't like, is to treat science like it's religion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I don't like that. And, like, this guy goes on to say, and I won't read this whole thing, there's a lot. Science tells us that the universe is fundamentally random and purposeless.
Yeah, see, that's bullshit. Random, yes. Purposeless, that's a value judgment. I don't see how science could make that.
And whose purpose? Your purpose or this?
Exactly. Right.
A random world, which according to all the scientific evidence and despite our intuitions is the actual world we live in, is too often misconstrued as nihilistic, demotivating, or devoid of morality and meaning. It needn't be. The scientific worldview of an unguided, spontaneous universe can be awe-inspiring and foundational to building a more compassionate society. And that's how he finishes it. So,
okay.
But where does this fit into recovery? How does this, maybe I overstated the importance of it, but it is something that is pervasive in all of our recovery. If it's Dharma, you're talking about basically an intelligent universe, right? In Buddhism,
you're talking about a universe that exists.
Yes, the universe exists, and
but compassion comes in the back door. Good works come in. Because we are all there is no essential difference between each one of us. So it's the golden rule in another religious guise.
Right. And I think that by understanding ourselves and the universe through science and through some of these studies, it doesn't negate the idea of give yourself over to something greater than yourself. Because the universe, and I used to say this to people I was working with in the rooms, like helping them, if they had a trouble with God, I would say that, it's anything could be your higher power. Not anything, but I would say think of gravity. If someone can't think of, this God, that was abusive and, all of that stuff, people get wrapped up in that, rightly so.
Sure.
I say, it just has to not be you. You have to, like this seed.
Or does it?
Or is it?
Or is it?
So coming back to that, I mean, if we're believing that we're all one and this, sentient universe is within all of us and all things, it doesn't mean that you can't say, I believe in a higher power, because the higher power is this universe that you're part of.
Right.
And I think
that's an interesting approach. I'm gonna relook at AA through that lens.
And I think that, that's kind of what if you're really having trouble with the Judeo-Christian version of God, and if it's keeping you from recovering, they say it themselves, the God of your understanding. That could mean anything, anything big, but it can actually be more more valid and more supportive to believe something that kind of bears out in science and all of that, and it's still God, it's still creation, and we're still makes us even more compassionate to our fellow recovering addicts.
I would like to think with all the acid that Bill Wilson took that he's like he could see it that way.
And I think that's going to wrap this up. I want everyone who's interested, I should say, write us at MikeR@middleagesrecovery.com and tell us what you think. And, was this extremely offensive to you? I'm very sorry.
We want to know.
None of this was meant to be offensive. These are really just things I think about. I think it's important to...
We don't know any of the answers. We're just thinking out loud.
But this is what I think about. So with that, I think we are going to move on
to
recovery in the news.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. Motherfucker. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Crack that note a little bit.
That was pretty deep, man. We went pretty deep on that last topic.
Right into the deep end.
Yeah. I'm glad you put that article in there. You were you really have command of this subject matter. You do.
I even read the article before we did the show.
I did not.
I don't
know.
Yeah, it was cool. Thanks for humoring me there, guys.
So, feeling addicted to food? You don't have to answer right away. Finish with the vape.
I do feel addicted to food.
Your parents' drinking habits may impact your risk. This is an article from somewhere. I don't see the site.
Yes, no site given.
But it's in just about every media outlet this week. So apparently people with a parent who has a history of alcohol problems.
ScienceDaily.com.
Okay. They are at a greater risk for showing signs of addiction to highly processed foods. A study from the University of Michigan found.
I see.
That's weird, right?
Yeah.
Foods like ice cream, chocolate, pizza, and fries, which contain unnaturally high amounts of refined carbs and fats, may trigger an addictive response in some people. And the researchers wanted to know if a major risk factor for addiction, for example, a parent with alcohol problems, predicted an increased risk of addiction to processed food.
Interesting.
A very intriguing hypothesis. As many as 1 in 5 people seem to show this clinically significant addiction to highly processed foods marked by a loss of control over intake, intense cravings, and an inability to cut down despite negative consequences. Does that sound like any other substance that we might be addicted to?
Mm-hmm.
And they discovered that people who have a family history of addiction may be at a greater risk for developing a problematic relationship with highly processed foods. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something I've thought about before. Go on.
But this addictive response does not only end with food.
No.
People with food addiction are also more likely to exhibit personal problems with alcohol, cannabis, tobacco, and vaping. So, what this sets forth is the idea that addiction may have a genetic component.
Either that
or
go on.
Or a social component.
Yeah.
But
go on.
If it were purely social, I don't know if you would expect to see... I think you would expect to see a predilection to an addiction to alcohol if the parent is an alcoholic. Because if the parent is not addicted to foods, weird carbohydrate-like foods, but the offspring are addicted, have a propensity for addiction to food as well as alcohol, doesn't that speak to something going on with the dopamine system or a genetic predisposition?
Yeah, I think it just further proves our hypothesis that addiction is universal to many things. That the addiction is not the substance necessarily.
Yeah, correct.
It's a behavior.
Okay.
In general, which is why when you take a medication like naltrexone or Camprol, they tell you this, and it's true. Overall, you won't crave. They even told me, like, you might quit smoking while you take this because it shuts down the craving centers. And it was explained to me in rehab. They had a brain scientist come and show us slides about what causes craving.
I'm Dr. Nick. This is your brain.
Hi, everybody. and it had to do with something was jiggling in the brain cell, and then this medicine would like kind of stiffen it a little, so that the wiggling of the thing was the craving. It was really interesting.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. And this brain scientist, he was great. He like volunteers his time at this rehab.
Brain scientist.
He had a hat.
Hi, I'm a brain scientist.
His hat said brain scientist. I think it was a joke because he was kind of funny.
Talking to a bunch of like stoners, that's hysterical.
Yeah. We come to Seafield out east on the island, and I think he's still there. He does research. And in any case, I think this just goes back to, and I was feeling like I'm addicted a little bit to food now.
Yeah, me too. But
sweets.
Yeah.
And I hadn't experienced that or thought of it in addiction like terms until I started noticing that I don't eat much during the day, but between 10 and 2 a.m., I'm going back to the refrigerator for sweets.
You have like a reverse intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
You eat late at night.
And I even like questioned myself the other night. I was, it was 1 o'clock. I wake up and I was like, I want to eat some ice cream. And then I stopped myself. I said, what am I doing? Why do I want ice cream so much? And when I ate it, I got this feeling.
It's your dopamine rush.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I can totally see where this could be across the board. And is it genetic? Did you inherit it? I don't know, but behaviorally maybe, and there's a genetic component. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe part of it is that you inherited the same kind of dopamine receptors that your parents had, or maybe it's the fact that there's a learned behavior on.
Right, you watch them eat and feel better.
You watch them use something external to themselves to cope with their feelings, whether it be food, whether it be alcohol, and somehow subconsciously if you're 10 years old, you're not going to go out and get smashed on alcohol, but you can certainly eat food, which will increase your dopamine response, right? So maybe that's it.
So very salient article. Cogent even.
So let's move on.
That's
it. We're bumping up on the 2-hour mark.
Well, when it's every other week, I feel like we want to give the people what they want.
But speaking of addiction to food, I'm starving.
I'm starving too. I think there's food waiting for me. Week in Weird. Bigfoot photographed on farm in Tennessee. I like how
Of course.
I love the question mark at the end of these titles. By who?
Timmy B.
Tim Banal. A peculiar photograph from a farm in Tennessee shows what appears to be some kind of figure lurking behind a fence, and the property owner suspects that it just might be a Sasquatch.
In Tennessee?
Yeah.
Is that a big place for Sasquatch?
Any part of the South sees Sasquatch.
No kidding.
The odd image, which can be seen below, we'll put it in the show notes, was reportedly posted on a Bigfoot-related Facebook group over the weekend by a man named Donnie Hicks. Hicks.
He should have another name in there, like Donnie Roy Hicks or Donnie Lee Hicks.
Explaining that one of his farm hands had sent him the picture. He mused that something is going on in the middle of Tennessee with several alleged and rumored sightings of Bigfoot, and then wondered if the anomaly in the image could be the legendary cryptid.
Of course.
I love that word.
Cryptid.
Hicks went on to suggest that the possible Sasquatch...
That's a good band name. Possible Sasquatch.
Has caused something of a commotion on his farm as... all of my chickens are missing. I don't know what to do or think here. Additionally, he lamented that my farm manager is completely freaked out by El Diablo Yeti. Well, that's a good one. And that concern over possibly encountering creature caused the worker to actually quit his job. Wow. Alas.
You don't pay me enough to deal with them Sasquatches.
That Sasquatch is looking at me. Alas, much like many purported photos of Bigfoot, the image shared by Hicks is largely indecipherable.
Of course. Yeah.
Though it does show a curious anomaly that somewhat resembles a figure standing in his field. However, not everyone is convinced that Hicks's photo shows Bigfoot, with some skeptical observers arguing that the oddity is far too thin to be the famed cryptid, and as such, they theorize that it could be simply a bird sitting on the farmer's fence. Others have suggested that given the colorful nature of the farmer's account, perhaps the photo and the story that accompanied it are merely a prank on the part of Hicks.
Who would joke about something as serious as the Sasquatch?
I would never joke about something as serious.
I know
as
you
Sasquatch.
wouldn't, but I think Donnie Lee Hicks would.
Sasquatch. Weak and Weird. Well, that about does it for today. I know I had a great time. Did you?
I sure did.
Thanks so
Nat.
much for listening.
Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks,
Nat.
guys. We appreciate you.
Thanks. We appreciate you.
That's right.
We
Appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
I actually like that expression.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
I've been using it.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. So tweet us at Twat You Twit. Support your favorite show. Drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Join the private Facebook group. It's free, easy, and fun.
It's easy.
Just search Recovery in the Middle Ages on Facebook. We'll pop up. I'll let you in. Buy a T-shirt.
Pop right up.
Or simply write and say hello. Mike R. at middleagesrecovery.com. We love meeting new Monksters and chopping it up on the Facebook group. Join the Inner Sanctum, guys. Free merch. It's a paid service that you get video episodes. We get merch, like these cool mugs. There's a Discord server where we're always chatting with each other. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommended. Go to patreon.com. Highly recommended.
Highly recommended.
Patreon.com.
It's highly recommended by the guys that are cashing the checks.
Yes, all of the checks. Patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. And check it out, guys. And finally, the best way to support the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something out of this, please share it with someone you love. Let's get everybody in on this.
All of you.
Everybody can live a more fulfilling, clean life, and we can do it together.
Yes.
And as we say, non proficiat perfecto.
That's stay fresh, cheese bags.
See you next time.
Bye. Be good, also. Okay.
Whoa!
That's progress, not perfection. Bye.
Still making noise.